Good, good. Well, thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate it. Obviously, a busy time at the moment. You guys have been touring a lot this year, yeah?
No, actually, we're between the tourings. We come back from U.S. Canada tour a couple of weeks ago, and now we're ready for Australia.
Yeah, coming up in
Pretty,
a couple of
pretty
weeks.
much.
Yeah, next week. Looking forward to it.
Next week. No, it's not.
Yeah. When was the last time you were down in Australia? I was just trying to think of that actually, just before.
Believe it or not, that was around a decade. I think the last time we were around 10 years ago with Creator. Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
last one.
Yeah, so obviously exciting to have you back in Australia. 40 years. It's unbelievable that it's been 4 decades since VADER started. How do you feel about that?
It's really hard to believe, and when we started to play, we were teenagers, and we were not sure that we will exist in the next 5 years,
Mm,
and 30 years old people were almost dead for us, that old.
yeah.
And now, Vader 40 years and ever, so it's really hard to believe, but we're happy that we're alive and we're still active
Yeah.
and we still play for the next generations of metalheads, and that's, I think, the huge success. And nobody expected that, nobody, me, never. But I'm happy again, happy
Yeah, no,
that
definitely.
we can influence another generations with metal. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I mean you guys have obviously influenced a lot of bands in the wake of the 40 years that you've been around. But taking us back to the beginning of that, like what was influencing you to actually start the band in the first place?
You know, uh, we started in early '80s, so we're probably 90% of all the metalheads back then.
Hmm.
So I started with Black Sabbath, then Priest, Saxon, and then everything were coming up more and more extreme. Slayer came out with Show No Mercy, and that changed everything. And you know, up till '90s, so it was everything about faster, heavier, more brutal,
Hmm.
and same Vader. So we wanted to be more extreme when we started, but back then in '83, so we're closer to bands like Saxon and the Motorhead, like
Yeah,
Judas Priest,
yeah,
then Slayer when they came up. But so we tried to make faster and faster, but the pollen was still behind the Iron Curtain, so the connection with the world, about the news and what's coming up, the fresh albums, was not that easy to have.
mm,
So it took time, just to refresh, the situation in Poland. But we still had the crazy fans and the official radio stations. So that was not really proper way, but they were playing the whole album, so we can record it straight from the album. Nobody actually did care about it's a the proper way or not. We are still behind our curtain,
yeah,
but that was the source, and the other source was, of course, the connection with some friends in Poland, who had their families outside of Poland, so they had some albums shipped to them, and that was the source. So we had to travel. I was a traveler since I remember, so sometimes we had to travel the half of day just to tape some demo tapes or record some albums, and to have it. The cassettes were the most known and most popular format back then in Poland,
yeah,
because that was easy to use, and the compact discs, they were still in plans. They came up in '90s, and the records, the vinyls, were just too expensive to have them.
mm,
So of course we had them, but that was just, you could have one in 2 or 3 months. There was, really, you had to spend probably half of your monthly payments to have the album. So
yeah,
that was really not easy.
yeah,
So the Flow March was actually the only source, and that was a very popular place to meet friends, to meet fans and friends, to listen to some albums, because that would allow to play vinyls just to listen to before you buy. So now, or of course, exchanging, the albums. That was the other way. So
Mm.
80s was hard, but that was days when everything was starting in Poland. Vader, we started something we called underground because we are like living actually parallel to everything which was like official music business, let's say. Metal was not even born back then, so we were like me, like Vader, and some bands like Imperator, Slaughter, Slashing Death.
Mm-hmm.
The bands we tried to remind on the album called Future of the Past Part 2. That was the real beginning of the underground and extreme metal music in Poland. And that
Yeah.
was middle of 80s, if you could say.
Yeah, it's interesting how the metal genre in particular has kind of evolved over time. Look at the music that's happening now with like the sort of more deathcore type of stuff and things like that, and it seems to be kind of gotten more progressive as time goes on as well. But what's your opinion on today's music compared to like the music scene in particular compared to what it was back in the day?
Actually, I stopped to follow what's going on years ago, but I got eyes and ears open, and I
Hmm.
know what's going on. And uh, trust me, I never ever expected when I started my journey with metal that metal can be that different. Because I'm old school, so to me, metal is just very special, and in the image, and also in the sound. So definitely today, the bands we call metal bands wouldn't be even called metal in
Hmm.
80s or especially 90s when the bands were so much orthodox and so much extreme.
Hmm.
But that's the way. I'm not the one who's to judge is it good or not. I just follow what I like. And no, Vader is Vader and still is Vader. And some people hate it for that, but some people love it for that. And we play for those who love Vader because we're Vader. And of course, we evolve, but we not follow the trends. And definitely, you will never hear Vader playing something like a deathcore you mentioned, or something like which is like pretty connected to like a gothic metal or whatever. It's
Hmm.
just different. We
Yeah.
Vader like AC/DC is AC/DC, and everybody expects AC/DC play to sound like AC/DC. Same with Vader, or Motorhead.
Yeah.
If we can mention the bands who just follow what they like, and I think fans expect it from bands. The fans, I don't think fans expect like changing bands from album to album just to show up how open we are. It's
Hmm.
not like that. We should play the music we like and we feel, not the music we're able to play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's all about Vader. But as I mentioned before, I try uh, to have an orientation. What's going on around. But definitely, I do not like everything. But I follow what I do like, and there's still many bands who, from the new generations, who play their own version of extreme music, and this is good.
Yeah.
This is what I
Yeah.
like.
Definitely. Talking about expectations, especially from the fans, what can the Australian fans expect on this tour? Are you sort of doing anything special for the anniversary at all, or?
You know, it is called like 40th anniversary on the posters, but this tour actually is something we used to play around 2 years ago, or even more, because you know that we're supposed to play in Australia 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and because of pandemia, everything was postponed twice.
Mhm.
So I'm happy that finally everything is arranged, and we're coming up soon, next week, next week, by the way. But this is definitely going to be something different to what we played 2 years ago. Especially, I try to see the last set list to bring something fresh, refreshed, and we're definitely going to make something like a combination, like a mix of the classic Vader songs from the early albums and something from the last album and the last works. So we try to bring something for also the old fans of Vader and those who joined us lately. So definitely you can expect something from Solitude Madness, but also something from from the album Incantation, like De Profundis, and so on, so on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be around. We're ready to play around 90 minutes of set, intense set, and all depends, of course, on the crowd. If the crowd wants something, we will play. If not, we will not.
Yeah.
But we're ready. We're ready for intense 90-minute sets, like bringing back the kind of, let's say, history of bands called VADER. So
Yeah.
that's what we are ready for.
Cool. Now you mentioned Solitude of Madness, obviously the last album that came out a few years ago. So I guess people have been asking, is there any sort of plans to sort of work on the next album at all, or have you already been starting to work on that, or?
You know what? It is like 3 years, but remember that we lost 2 years because of COVID, and to me, still like a new album. We never had a chance to perform this one proper way because of pandemia, and in the meantime, we had a new drummer, so I do not really want to push myself to record a new album. We still have some re-editions of a classic Vader album. The Black to the Blind is next. The Revelations is also in plans, and definitely there is still the fans from the generation who never listened to these albums. So we definitely gonna like remind those titles in the live set as well. So Solitude Madness is still the album we did not play proper way, and this is good one and deserves something more, and so we need a little bit more time for that. So I think 2025, this is it's a real time just to be ready for the new Vader album, not before, definitely.
Yeah. Obviously, as you mentioned, COVID obviously hit everyone, worldwide, especially touring musicians like yourselves, How did you personally handle all that stuff during that downtime?
Actually, Vader was dealing pretty good in 2020 and 21. And when everybody was pretty much grounded because of COVID, so we still had around 50 shows in 20 and 80 shows in 21.
Okay.
But probably that's because we're flexible bands. We're not afraid to play in those restrictions. Let's say like in the places where the sitting places. To play metal for people who just are seated. It's funny, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And many of those shows with the chairs ready were just like symbolic. People were still like banging heads, were still like get crazy, not that crazy like in a regular way, but still. And many of those shows were pretty regular, crazy. So with no even chairs tonight, the restriction were just on the posters. That's it. And so we're not that bad. The situation was not bad for Vader. We still we kept doing as much as possible in those bad times. But I know that many friends of mine, many bands were grounded. Really, they played 0 shows, and that was not good. And as I said, we tried to save the band and the crew and the fans. And I think we succeed with that, pretty much, with that many shows still, in the bad times.
Oh, that's good. So do you have any last words at all for the Australian fans before you hit our shores?
I'm ready for the first words after 10 years next week. But we're ready. What I can say, we're pretty much ready for Australia, and we're full of energy, and definitely we're going to show it up for you. And soon, and the set list is ready. The set list is pretty intense, and we just can't wait. So next week, see you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it, and good luck on the tour. Hope it turns out really well for you, and I guess we'll see you very soon.
Same here. So see you, and thanks for the chat.